The moment a stranger demanded my sick daughter's first-class meal, I thought I'd seen the worst of human entitlement. But when the pilot stepped in, everything changed in the most satisfying way possible. My name is Sarah, and this happened 6 months ago during what should have been a simple medical flight from Chicago to Boston with my 8-year-old daughter Mia, who had just been discharged from the hospital after a severe bout of pneumonia that had kept us there for 5 terrifying days. The doctors finally cleared her for travel, but warned us she was still fragile, needed rest, and required small, frequent meals to regain her strength. I'd saved up for months to afford first-class tickets because I knew Mia needed the extra space, comfort, and better meal options during the 3-hour flight. It wasn't a luxury. It was a medical necessity. That morning, Mia looked so small and pale in her lavender hoodie and purple sweatpants, clutching her stuffed bunny that had been her comfort throughout the hospital stay, and I could see the exhaustion in her eyes as we made our way through the airport. When we finally boarded and found our seats, 3A and 3B, right near the front of first class, I helped Mia settle in, wrapping her favorite soft blanket around her shoulders, adjusting her pillow, making sure she was comfortable before we even took off. The seat next to us in 3C was empty, and I remember feeling grateful for the extra space, thinking maybe Mia could stretch out a bit during the flight. But then she boarded, a woman in her early 50s with platinum blonde hair styled dramatically, wearing a bright red designer blazer that practically screamed, "Look at me!" Expensive jewelry glinting on her wrists and fingers, and an expression on her face that immediately told me she was the type who believed the world owed her something. She had seat 3D, right across the aisle from us, and from the moment she sat down, I could feel her eyes on us, scanning Mia's pale face, her blanket, her stuffed bunny, and I saw her nose wrinkle slightly like she'd smelled something unpleasant. I tried to ignore it, focusing on Mia, who was already dozing off before we'd even pushed back from the gate, her little hand holding mine. The flight attendant, her name tag said Lisa, came by with a warm smile, asking if we needed anything before takeoff, and I quietly explained that my daughter had just been released from the hospital and might need some extra care during the flight. Lisa was wonderful, immediately offering to bring Mia some ginger ale and crackers once we were in the air, and telling me not to hesitate to press the call button if we needed anything at all. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to Rayan Review 2.0 for more incredible stories. About 30 minutes into the flight, once we'd reached cruising altitude and the seatbelt sign turned off, Lisa came around to the first-class meal service, and because of Mia's condition, I pre-ordered a special children's meal that was easy to digest. Chicken broth, plain rice, steamed vegetables, and a small container of vanilla pudding. Lisa placed a tray gently on Mia's table, and my daughter woke up looking at the food with tired eyes, managing a small smile as she picked up her spoon to try the broth. That's when I heard it. A sharp, indignant voice from across the aisle. "Excuse me, is that a special meal?" I looked over, and the woman in the red blazer was leaning into the aisle, staring at Mia's tray with what can only be described as jealousy mixed with outrage. Yes," I said carefully. "It's a special meal for my daughter. She's recovering from an illness." The woman, let's call her Karen because you'll understand why in a moment, waved her hand dismissively and said, "Well, I have dietary restrictions too, and nobody offered me a special meal. That looks much better than what's on the regular menu." Lisa, still standing in the aisle with her service cart, politely explained, "Ma'am, special meals need to be requested at least 24 hours before the flight. If you have dietary needs for future flights, I'd be happy to help you arrange that." But Karen wasn't listening. She stood up, stepping into the aisle, and actually pointed at Mia's tray, saying in this entitled tone, "I want that meal. Give me that one, and you can bring the child something else. She's young, she'll eat anything. I'm the paying customer here." I felt my blood run cold. Mia had stopped eating, her spoon hovering over the broth, her eyes wide and confused as she looked up at this strange woman demanding her food. "Absolutely not," I said firmly, instinctively putting my hand over Mia's tray protectively. "This is my daughter's meal, specifically ordered for her medical needs. You can order whatever's on the regular menu." Karen's face flushed red, coincidentally matching her blazer, and she raised her voice loud enough that other passengers started turning in their seats. "Medical needs? She looks fine to me. You're just trying to get special treatment by playing the sick child card. It's people like you who ruin flying for everyone else. The entire first-class cabin went silent. Mia's lower lip started trembling, tears welling up in her eyes, and she pulled her blanket tighter around herself, shrinking into her seat. I felt rage bubbling up inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm, to not sink to this woman's level. My daughter just spent 5 days in the hospital with pneumonia. I said, my voice shaking with controlled anger. She needs specific foods that her body can handle right now. You're welcome to order anything on the menu, but you're not taking her meal. Lisa stepped in immediately, her professional demeanor intact, but her voice noticeably firmer. Ma'am, I need you to return to your seat. If you'd like to order from the first-class menu, I'm happy to help you with that. But Karen just got louder, turning to address the other passengers like they were her audience. This is outrageous. I paid thousands of dollars for this first-class ticket, and I'm being denied proper service while this woman and her daughter get special treatment. Where's the manager? I want to speak to whoever's in charge. If you're enjoying this, hit that like button right now. That's when I heard the cockpit door open. The entire cabin seemed to freeze as Captain Reynolds emerged, a tall man in his mid-50s with salt and pepper hair, wearing his Navy pilot uniform with her gold stripes on his sleeves, radiating an authority that immediately commanded respect. He walked calmly down the aisle, his captain's hat tucked under his arm, and stopped directly in front of Karen, who finally fell silent, apparently not expecting the pilot himself to get involved. Ma'am, he said in a voice that was calm but carried absolute authority, I'm Captain Reynolds, and I'm responsible for everyone on this aircraft. I understand there's an issue with meal service. Karen's demeanor changed instantly. Suddenly, she was all smiles and sweetness, like she hadn't just been screaming at a sick child and her mother. Oh, Captain, thank goodness. Yes, I was just explaining that I have dietary needs, and I was hoping to have the special meal that was given to this child, but the staff has been very unaccommodating. Captain Reynolds nodded slowly, then turned to Lisa. Can you explain the situation, please? Lisa, bless her, gave a clear, professional summary. The special meal was pre-ordered 48 hours ago for a child recovering from pneumonia. The passenger in 3D is demanding we take that meal away from the sick child and give it to her instead. She's refused all other menu options and has been harassing the mother and daughter. The captain's expression didn't change, but I saw something shift in his eyes, a hardness that made me realize this man did not tolerate nonsense at 30,000 feet. He turned back to Karen. Ma'am, is this accurate? Karen's fake sweetness evaporated. Well, yes, but I'm a premium passenger. I should have access to the best meal options. It's not fair that... Captain Reynolds held up one hand, cutting her off mid-sentence. Let me be very clear. That child's meal was specifically ordered to accommodate her medical needs. You are demanding that we take food away from a sick 8-year-old girl who just spent 5 days in a hospital. Is that correct? You could hear a pin drop. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish, clearly not expecting to be called out so directly. I just think, I have rights as a passenger. The captain's voice remained calm, but grew noticeably colder. Your rights as a passenger do not include harassing other passengers, especially children. Your rights do not include demanding we remove medical accommodations from someone who needs them. And your rights certainly do not include creating a disturbance that affects the safety and comfort of everyone on this aircraft. Karen tried to interrupt, but I paid, and Captain Reynolds cut her off again. What you paid for was a seat in first class, which you currently occupy. What you did not pay for was the right to bully a sick child and her mother. Lisa, what's the seat availability in the back of the aircraft? Lisa checked her tablet quickly and said, We have several open seats in the last row of economy, sir. Captain Reynolds nodded. Perfect. Ma'am, you have 2 choices. You can return to your seat, apologize to this mother and daughter, order from the available menu options, and enjoy the rest of your flight in first class. Or I can move you to the last row of economy, right next to the lavatories, where you'll spend the remainder of this flight. The choice is entirely yours, and you have 10 seconds to decide. The entire cabin was watching now, and I saw several passengers with their phones out. clearly recording. Karen stood there, her face cycling through emotions, shock, anger, indignation, and then she made the worst possible choice. She laughed bitterly and said, "You can't do that. You can't just move a paying first-class passenger to economy. I'll sue this airline. I'll report you. Do you know who I am?" Captain Reynolds didn't even blink. "I'm the pilot in command of this aircraft, which means I have full authority to make decisions regarding passenger safety and conduct. You just demonstrated that you're unwilling to comply with reasonable requests and continue to create a disturbance. Lisa, please relocate this passenger to seat 42F immediately. Ma'am, gather your belongings now." Karen's face went from red to almost purple. "You can't be serious." But Captain Reynolds just stood there, unmoved, while Lisa and another flight attendant moved to help, or rather, supervise, Karen as she furiously grabbed her designer purse and carry on from the overhead bin. "This is discrimination," Karen shouted as she was escorted down the aisle. "I'm being punished for standing up for myself. You'll all see the lawsuit coming. Share this video to support Rayan Review 2.0. Let's spread this amazing story." As Karen was walked past us toward the back of the plane, Captain Reynolds turned to Mia and me. His entire demeanor softened, and he knelt down slightly so he was at eye level with Mia, who was still crying quietly into her blanket. "Hi there," he said gently. "What's your name?" And Mia, my daughter, whispered, "Well, Mia, I'm very sorry that lady upset you. You didn't do anything wrong, okay? You just focus on eating your meal and getting better. Can you do that for me?" Mia nodded, wiping her eyes, and managed a tiny smile. Captain Reynolds stood up and placed a hand on my shoulder. "I have a daughter about her age," he said quietly. "If anyone treated my child like that, I'd want someone to step in. You two just relax and enjoy the rest of your flight. If you need anything at all, you tell Lisa and she'll come get me." I felt tears streaming down my own face as I thanked him, my voice breaking. He just nodded with a kind smile and walked back toward the cockpit, stopping briefly to speak with Lisa, who glanced back at us with a warm, reassuring look. Once he was gone, the cabin erupted in whispers, and several passengers actually got to come over and check on us. A woman from row 5 brought me a little teddy bear she bought at the airport, saying, "You're so brave, sweetheart." An older gentleman told me he'd flown hundreds of times and had never seen a captain handle situations so perfectly. Even the businessman in the seat behind us leaned forward and said, "That woman was completely out of line. Your daughter doesn't deserve that kind of treatment." For the rest of the flight, Lisa made sure Mia had everything she needed. Extra crackers, fresh ginger ale, even a little pack of crayons, and a coloring book from the children's entertainment kit. Mia slowly finished her meal, her color improving slightly as she nibbled on the plain rice and sipped her broth. I held her hand the entire time, still processing what had just happened, still in disbelief that a complete stranger had tried to take food from my sick child. About an hour before landing, Lisa came by and quietly told me that Captain Reynolds wanted to see us in the cockpit after we landed, if we were comfortable with that. Of course I said yes, and when we finally touched down in Boston and taxied to the gate, Mia and I waited until everyone else had deplaned before Lisa escorted us to the front of the plane. Captain Reynolds was there, finishing his post-flight checks, and he turned with a genuine smile when he saw us. "How are you feeling, Mia?" he asked. "Better," she said softly, hugging her bunny. "Good. I'm glad." He reached into his flight bag and pulled out a pair of silver pilot wings, the kind they used to give to kids back in the day. "These are official pilot wings. You know what they mean?" Mia shook her head. "They mean you're brave, strong, and you don't let bullies bring you down. I think you've earned these today." He pinned them gently onto her hoodie, and Mia's face lit up with the first real smile I'd seen in days. I completely lost it, tears streaming down my face as I thanked him over and over. "Just doing the right thing," he said simply. "Nobody messes with kids on my flights. Nobody." As we left the plane, I turned back and asked, "What happened to that woman? Is she going to face any consequences?" Captain Reynolds nodded. "She's been placed on the airline's no-fly list pending an investigation. Harassment of passengers, especially children, is taken very seriously. She won't be flying with us again anytime soon. Want to hear the most compelling stories every week? Subscribe to Rayan Review 2.0 and never miss out. Walking through the airport toward baggage claim, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Mia was holding my hand, occasionally touching the pilot wings on her chest with wonder, and I realized something important. Captain Reynolds hadn't just protected my daughter from a bully. He'd shown her that there are good people in the world who will stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. But here's where the story gets even better. About 2 weeks later, I received an email from the airline's customer service department. They'd reviewed the incident, including the recordings that passengers had taken, and wanted to formally apologize for what we'd experienced. They refunded our entire flight costs, both tickets, and gave us travel vouchers for future flights. But that wasn't even the best part. The email explained that several passengers had written letters praising Captain Reynolds' handling of the situation, and the airline was using the incident as a training example for their staff on how to properly handle passenger conflicts and protect vulnerable travelers. They also informed me that Karen, well, they didn't use her name, but they made it clear who they meant, had indeed been placed on a permanent no-fly list with their airline after review of her behavior, and that she'd attempted to sue the airline, but her case had been dismissed almost immediately because of the overwhelming evidence of her harassment. Even better, one of the passengers who recorded the incident had posted it on social media, and it went viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments, all supporting Captain Reynolds and condemning Karen's behavior. People from around the world were praising the captain for standing up for a sick child, and the airline actually received thousands of positive messages about the incident. A few weeks after that, we got a personal letter in the mail, handwritten on official airline stationery, from Captain Reynolds himself. He'd taken the time to write to Mia, asking how she was feeling, if she was fully recovered, and encouraging her to stay strong and kind no matter what challenges she faced. He included a photo of himself standing in front of his plane, signed to Mia, the bravest passenger I've ever flown with. Keep soaring high, Captain Reynolds. Mia put that photo on her bedroom wall, right next to her pilot wings, and every time she looks at it, she smiles and says, "That's my captain." She's fully recovered now. Thank God. Her pneumonia is gone, her strength is back, and she's even talking about becoming a pilot someday, inspired by Captain Reynolds. As for me, I learned something profound that day. There are still heroes in this world. They might not wear capes, but they wear pilot uniforms, and they stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. They use their authority not to intimidate, but to protect, and they remind us that kindness and justice aren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is stand up firmly against cruelty. I also learned something about Karen. Well, not her specifically, but people like her. Entitlement is a disease, and it makes people believe their wants are more important than someone else's needs. It makes them think a designer blazer and an expensive ticket give them the right to bully a sick child. It makes them forget that there are consequences for treating others with cruelty and disrespect. Thanks for watching Rayan Review 2.0, where every story has a twist. Like, share, and subscribe for more drama, inspiration, and real-life tales. And here's the lesson I want to leave you with. The next time you see someone being mistreated, whether it's a sick child, an elderly person, someone who's vulnerable, channel your inner Captain Reynolds. Speak up. Stand firm. Use whatever authority or voice you have to protect those who need it. Because in the end, we're not judged by what we do when it's easy or convenient. We're judged by what we do when someone needs us to be brave, to be strong, to be the person who says, "No, this isn't right, and it stops now." Captain Reynolds could have stayed in the cockpit. He could have let the flight attendants handle it. He could have avoided the confrontation and the potential lawsuit and the hassle. But he didn't. He stepped up. He protected a sick child. He moved a bully to the last row where she belonged. And in doing so, he became a hero in my daughter's eyes, and in mine forever. That's the kind of person I want to be. That's the kind of world I want my daughter to grow up in. And that's why I'm sharing this story. Because good people doing the right thing deserves to be celebrated just as much as bad behavior deserves to be called out. So the next time you fly, remember, there are Captain Reynolds out there making sure that kindness and justice still have a place at 30,000 feet. And there are also Karens, who need to learn that their entitlement ends where another person's dignity begins. Choose to be like the captain. Always